Market's moving super fast. It's going to generate a lot of money because we're talking about things that can basically tap into many industries. Spend time thinking about what use cases this unlocks.
Yes.
I think there's a point to be made that AI will be part of our future no matter what. Like, this genie is not getting back into the bottle. Only more companies are going to use this. Only more companies are going to adopt this. So the best thing that you can do.
All right, hey, how's it going there? Ray Fernando. I'm here with João Moura, and we're going to have a really awesome interview talking about CrewAI. CrewAI is probably one of my most favorite and loved frameworks, and it's been getting a lot of buzz on the internet lately, getting tons of attention on GitHub, and I'd love to introduce you to João.
Hey there, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Yes, we are going to talk about CrewAI. We're going to talk about AI agents. We're going to talk about AI in general. I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation, honestly.
Right now, a lot of my friends are reading on like New York Times or seeing AI mentioned, but they ask Ray, like, what is AI?
So AI agents, if the name gets confusing, don't think about AI agents as a name. Think about automations. This is the next step of automations. The way that automations work right now is that they allow you for a given set of rules to do one thing or another. So it's basically an if and an else, and then like take into account a few parameters to decide how to go about things. But if you add LLMs to that, you basically add two very interesting capabilities. The first one is the capability of generating content, something that regular automations wouldn't be able to before. So you can have it write the email, and that unlocks a lot of automations that it wouldn't be possible before. But the second piece, and that's the most interesting, it taps into this idea of the model seems to have cognition because of the way that it was trained. So you can have this model decide on what content to create, on what tool to usage, and what, like, how to engage with the tools that you give to this model. So you can tell, like, you can give it a tool to search the internet. You can give it a tool to connect to your CRM. You can give it a tool to do Google searches. And then the model will use this cognition to decide, oh, for this use case, I'm going to actually look at the CRM, and then I'm going to do a Google search and whatnot. So it kind of broadens, like, a lot what you can automate.
So if you're a business owner and you're kind of hearing about AI, how do I get started with this?
Yeah.
Do I need like to hire a bunch of engineers to figure out how to use your software? Like,
right now, CrewAI is a framework, so any engineers should be able to use it. It allows you to build what we call multi-agent systems. So if you have an engineering team, they can start experimenting with from the get-go. It's an open source code. You don't have to pay anything to give it a try, to try it out and see how that works. The one thing that we keep learning from seeing the community building with CrewAI, it's how being a good manager and a good leader has a very high correlation with building great systems like this. Because in the end of the day, what you really need to do to build great systems with multi-agents is being able to think about the job description, like, who would I hire to do this job for me? So being able to distill, like, what would be their role, what would be their goal, what would be their backstory, that kind of helps you to create these very good agents. And then the other piece is like how I break down these tasks and I set expectations that are very clear to what I expect to get out of it. These are things that managers and business owners need to do on a daily basis. And I don't think it becomes second nature for them. And what I realize is that from the people and companies that are using CrewAI, the ones that do the better are the ones that the people that are building the systems are thinking through that management lens. And we even added some forcing functions in CrewAI that is basically a framework now to force you to think that way. So for example, when you're going to create a task in CrewAI, you got to say, this is what the task is. And now you have to say, this is my expected outcome.
Nice.
So this kind of acts as a forcing function, even for people that are not wired that way. They kind of like to conform and start to thinking about that way.
Oh, that's really cool. So right now, if you're a business owner and you maybe have some engineers, or maybe if you know a little bit of Python, you can get a little dangerous with some GPT-4 and getting started with a basic agent. And it sounds like you just need to define a really simple role think about maybe at a higher level what your management architecture looks like and what your employees will do, and then start defining those employees' roles, tasks, and like their outcome, and maybe some general background or context.
Yeah.
And then expected results would help in terms of when they're going to do those tasks and things.
If you get one agent and you say like, hey, can you do it all for me? Can you do sales, prospecting, customer support, and marketing? It's gonna suck at that because of like many technical reasons. But if you think about it as like a business owner or a manager, you realize that any human would suck at this as well, just because of like, it's too broad. What CrewAI allows is for you to create this multi-agents like applications where you say like, all right, I'm going to have one researcher, I'm going to have one content writer, I'm going to have a reviewer, and those three are going to work together in creating better marketing materials for me. And that's going to work way better. That said, we are working on an enterprise solution because from all the conversations that we have with like the customers, we have been noticing that they have specific needs that any company does to make sure that they can use a software like this, but they want to make sure that the sales teams can use this, that the marketing teams can use this without having to go through engineering. So the enterprise solution will be like, it's going to have its own UI, it's going to have its own infrastructure. So it's going to be pretty easy for like many companies to just like build something, deploy on our infrastructure, don't have to worry about SLAs, SLOs, compliance, or any of that. We're going to take care of all of that from you, and you can just reap the benefits of being able to have like automations that were never capable before.
If you get started now, what that will probably allow you to do is by the time you get this user interface at a different scale, it's going to be a similar amount of inputs maybe.
Yeah.
But just kind of more deployable within a company and so forth. And where can they find that right now?
I would say check CrewAI.com. So that's CrewAI.com, and you can find all the links that you care about in there. Right now, it's a little bit more geared toward engineers because engineers are the ones that have been like experimenting with this the most. But as soon as we drop the UI, hopefully sometime this week, you're gonna be able to actually use that a little bit, and I think that's gonna be very helpful for like people that are not familiar with Python or code or anything.
Do you have any stories to share that you can share publicly from people who have started to use this and they said, "Oh my God, this has saved me like $10,000, so far because, all the stuff I was doing, I can now focus on other things, or now I make more money because of these systems."
From the companies that we talked with, there's a few common threads. A big one seems to be sales. People really think that they can empower their sales people to do more and to focus on the right deals and leads using this. Given that a lead comes into my system or my email, how can a group of agents like do research, look at my CRM, understand my ICP, and understand like between my offerings and this lead needs and their company needs, what I should be talking to them about, what are the angles that I should be going after, and then basically kind of like pinging like their sales rep with like, hey, here's a very high quality lead, this is why they matter, here's all the research on it, these are like the crossover between your offerings and what their needs are, this is a draft of email that you can send them, now go for it. That's like one common example of automation that people could go after using using sales. But there are many more, right? There's more like around prospecting is another big one. So how you reach out to new people, not necessarily leading with inbound. And then there's like other examples around marketing. People seems to like, how do I create meaningful content through agents versus lame sounding content from ChatGPT? And how I can also give those agents extra power to look, for example, on or metrics or previous like ads, how those performed, and then use that to inform new content creation, new ad creation, and all that. So those are like two examples that I found to be very interesting.
That's incredible. That's really, really cool. And to hear that people actually are doing it and making, money and implementing in their businesses is a very, very big deal.
Yeah, they're definitely like, it seems like people are eager to build those, right? And the main thing that is kind of like getting in the way right now is that like there's no enterprise offering, right? And that's what we're trying to solve for now. Like, we want to make sure that there's something that they can use and then they can rely, and not something that necessarily needs to build from the scratch and have to spend all this time and money working and maintaining and all that. So yeah, I think like once this enterprise platform is out, like it's going to unlock a lot of opportunities for people out there.
Wow. So will AI take my job? That's probably a big concern for some people.
I gotta say, I think this goes back to what we were talking before. Like, we honestly don't know. Like, there's very much a chance that a couple years from now, OpenAI launches GPT-8, and that is AGI, and none of us have to work anymore. I mean, that is like, right now, it's not crazy to think about that. So we don't have very much control on what it's going to look like. But again, I think there's a point to be made that AI will be part of our future no matter what. Like, this genie is not getting back into the bottle.
Got it.
Like, we're not going back into this. It's like the internet's it's not gonna cease to exist. Neither AI.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what do you as a business owner or what do you as a software engineer can do?
Right.
And now the lever that you can pull for this is get familiar with these tools. Get ahead. Like, again, this is not like a fade that 1 year from now or 2 years from now, no one's going to be talking about it. No, only more companies are going to use this.
I see.
Only more companies are going to adopt this. So the best thing that you can do is get familiar with it,
right,
and learn how to deploy them into your favor. Again, there is a chance that in the future that won't care because no one's going to have a job anymore. But people that know this are going to be better off.
So let's just take this example a little bit, and let's just say I'm a recruiting agent, right? I run a recruiting company, and I have like about 15 recruiters on my staff. And each of them are receiving tons of inbound email, resumes. Resumes get forwarded to me from an external source. I'm at a golf tournament, and a bunch of people forward me their resumes. But I need to scan through and look for certain things, and maybe also bounce back specific conversations with specific people on like, hey, we need this, or we're at this stage of the offer. So how would I go through? Because I think emails is a big pain point for a lot of these types of businesses where they're spending hours on the weekends instead of spending time with their families. Just culling through the emails, simply like, hey, can you give me back? I need your phone number. It's not on the resume. Or like something small, like, hey, can you fill in this detail? We just need to find this about you. Where I feel like this is a perfect opportunity for something like CrewAI to kind of jump in the mix. What problem would you approach in this whole thing I just explained? And what would you tackle it? And how would you like actually tactically do like a simple first step for like a manager framework here?
So there are so many opportunities in what you described. That's so interesting.
Yes.
You can basically have a few different agents to help out with that. The first agent would probably filter out the noise, right? So you can have one agent that is automatically connected to your Gmail account. And as these new emails come in, it reads those emails and decide if are people that are worth engaging or not. You might do like some simple filter at first, like, hey, this is like a newsletter, you don't care about it, and you just push it away and kind of like get like the good ones. And you can even have it like, if you specify the kind of profile that you're looking for, it can kind of like filter that out and say like, all right, so let me make sure that I'm getting only the best ones here in this set. Then you can have another agent kind of verify out the information on these people, right? Because people are going to send you like a piece of their resume, but you can have another agent that is like going through each of those good ones and doing research online, like what this person has done, what companies have working for, like is there any other information that is worth adding to their profile and all that. And then you can even have a third agent that can look at the roles that you're trying to fill and the people, and then scoring these remaining profiles. Like these would be like good profiles, like A, B, C, and all that. And then it can automatically ping your internal staff saying like, hey, this is the list of the profiles. These are the very good ones. This is why you should be talking to them. Here's a draft email for you to send to them to see if they're going to engage with you. Now just go.
So what do you recommend? Do you chain these different managers together and deploy them separately, or just make it one mega agent? You know, because I feel like this can kind of turn from executive assistant role to, you know, like actually an employee role to like, you know, this
So
managers, like what's your kind of how
so
technical and for me as an engineer, I always like to think of keep it simple, stupid, and that always is my
yeah,
baseline. Hey, go do your task, do it well, and you just hand it off to the next guy. It's like the easiest to debug. It's less chain of confusion,
100%.
iterations, and so forth. Do you recommend kind of sticking to, like, in your experience of talking to various engineers, like what is their experience like with this?
Yes. So I played around with some of this. I played around with like bigger structure. In the beginning, I was doing the bigger structure thing. I was like, all right, I need to create a CEO, and the CEO is going to have like these people that are going to report to it. And then kind of like I got myself in thinking like doesn't make sense. And then the analogy in my brain, because I was trying to decide if that was the right way versus like just creating very specific agents. And the analogy that came to my brain is like, I'm trying to make an airplane that flaps its wings. Like just because I see birds flapping its wings, I'm like getting the plane to do the same thing. And that is missing out the point. In the end of the day, the cool thing about AI agents is that they're still code. You want to put some jet engines on them. You want to make sure that you're leveraging the fact they are still code. So you want to bring the best thing about like this humans, relationships, and processes, and the way that this works with the fact that you can skip steps, that you don't need managers of managers of managers, because in the end of the day, these are all LLMs. So I would say keep things simple. Instead of building like this huge org, try to don't do like multiple levels. Maybe do like one level, maybe two, and then you can get the outcome of that crew, that group of agents, to be used with another crew. That is the thing that has been working the better now.
That's really, really good advice, because there's been a lot of different ways to approach it, and you're gonna I've seen different my own. I always kind of go complicated, and then I get frustrated, and I come back and rethink about things, maybe go for a walk and so forth, and get some fresh air. But it sounds like there's also a community of people that can contribute and get opinions on. Do you have like a Discord as well?
Yeah, so the things start to blow off a little bit. We got a bunch of people in GitHub, and then we start a Discord community. We're closing in on 2,000 members in that community right now, and
wow,
people are really join. And people are like, it's free to join, and people are like engaging. So if you, let's say that you're playing with it, or your engineers are playing with it, and you need some help, that's the place that I would say go, and the community is going to help out and it's going to answer your questions. I'm going to soon deploy a group of AI agents to help manage the community. So you're going to have like agents replying answers there as well, and that's going to be super helpful, hopefully. So there's quite a community out there. And also, like, if you're just trying to get ideas or you want to see examples, I would say go on YouTube and search CrewAI, or go on Google and search CrewAI. There's a bunch of videos coming out on CrewAI and how to use it in examples. So I think like you can get very good ideas from watching those.
That's excellent. So let's just get a little bit into the engineering side of things. Let's just say I'm the engineer kind of starting to play around with this. Am I only tied to OpenAI's like GPTs, or can I use some other types of GPTs? Can I use my own models? Can I deploy it locally? Can I deploy it on my own infrastructure? What's been your experience? What's been some of your feedback from the people you've been talking to who've had a lot of great results?
OpenAI is great. Their API is amazing. And GPT-4, it's on point.
Yeah.
The thing is, it is kind of expensive, especially to run at scale. And even if you don't care about the expense because you think like there's still upside to be made, the latency alone can kind of prevent more complex use cases. Like at the end of the day, you're doing an HTTP call, there's rate limits involved. So there's like only a fair amount of data that you can process in a given hour. And that can be detrimental if you're talking about, hey, I have a database with like 300 million like companies, people's resources, whatever it might be. So I think like open sources kind of like are the way to go once that you get to that point, because these open source models, at least their raw version might not be as good as GPT-4, but if you fine tune them, they can get very good at one specific thing.
Interesting.
And I think a lot of people are kind of like sleeping on that. They're missing out that because Fine-tuning is not as complex as it sounds. For even engineers that are not familiar with AI, there are tools out there that allow you to do it pretty easily. And you get so much better results out of it. And then you can deploy that on your own infrastructure where you're going to have no rate limits and you're going to stop paying per token and start to paying by uptime. So, but how many hours you have this run and how many hits you can have on that endpoint. From the get-go, CrewAI always had that in mind, that for different reasons, people are going to use different models. Some of the companies that we have been talking to, they're pretty big, and they have like long-standing deals with Google. So they need to use Gemini. Others have pretty long-standing deals with Microsoft, so they need to use Azure. That said, CrewAI allows you to connect with any of those LLMs if you want to. You can do Azure, you can do Gemini, you can do OpenAI, and you can also do local. You can use Ollama, you can use LM Studio. There are other tools that you can run these models locally that you can use to. How to empower people to also tap into those open source models.
Wow.
Because another thing of it is data privacy, right?
Right.
You don't necessarily want a lot of data going through all like those big companies. You might want to have like, hey, my CRM data, my customers' data, I want them to go into like this very private open source models that I run in my infrastructure. So I'm not sharing PII with anyone and I'm complying with regulations, especially in Europe nowadays. So that's another big thing that we are definitely like very careful about at CrewAI.
Am I allowed to have like a very specific agent that is doing a specific task to have a one language model, and maybe the manager or someone else can have like a GPT-4 because maybe I get better results with that? Are you allowed to get that very specific?
Exactly.
Nice.
That's exactly that. So you can have in this structure, you can have each agent run from a specific LLM, and you can have ones running from specific like fine-tuned models. So one example that I can give you is with CrewAI. Once the enterprise solution is out and available to everyone, you're going to be able to connect to your CRM and train a model on your emails for your closed won deals. So now we have this agent that is very good at writing emails for customers that do become customers that close it. So now you can use that agent to your automations as a member of your crew. So being able to run agents from specific models unlocks not only this ability to switch vendors, but also ability to have very targeted, fine-tuned models.
That is mind-blowing. Because I think the future is here. For an example, I've been playing around a lot with Ollama. I feel like they've almost like Dockerized the whole concept of getting to download a language model, having it available as a list, selecting it, and then serving it locally on your infrastructure. So I'm a single person business, and even if I have employees working with me throughout the house, I could just set up a Mac, fire up Ollama, download the latest, nose research, Hermes 2.5, and just have it served on my local server. And it'll just be like whatever my name of my MacBook is .local. And then I could just have that endpoint hit by these 3 different systems that are on my actual local network, all of it churning away. It just cost me power to power that really efficient M1 machine.
And it's so cool. And all your data remains privately. They're not going anywhere. And the speed is way faster because inference and local models usually faster depending on the machine that you have. So there's a lot of upsides in there.
Wow. So yeah, it seems like some of the models that have like a lot of really good performance, that has more RAM, but there's also been some other tinier models that don't need as much requirements. And especially if you're talking about fine tuning, and especially for a very specific task, you can have them run without much infrastructure and
100%. I mean, I fine tune like Mixtro 7Bs to the point that they like are up to the same performance that GPT 3.5. And that's a model that you can run like honestly on most of the devices out there. You might not even need a GPU to run it, given how like small it is.
What would be your go-to choice if you're just trying to run this as an experiment to test?
Yeah. So I think there's different answers to that. I think the first thing is depending on what you want to experiment with. Like if you just want to get familiar with these tools and there's value on that, I would say go for a GPT, try it out, like make sure that you're using it. At least like the chat GPT, like so you can talk with it. I think there's benefits for like you and your employers to do it, because Honestly, if you think about the future here, we have very little control of what the future will look like. Honestly, less than what I would like to admit. So there's no clear prediction of like what everyone's jobs will be. That said, there's one thing that is pretty clear. The same way that the internet became this platform where like all the business are made and our lives happens out now, AI will be a big piece of our futures on a similar way. So the most that you can get familiar with AI right now, that's the one thing that you have control that will set you up for success in the future. Because whatever this future end up being, AI will be big, and the ones that are better familiar with it, they know better how to operate it, they're gonna have an edge. So my advice is that try AI anyway. If you want to do regular chat, ChatGPT works great. If you want to experiment agents, I would say go with CrewAI. Best framework out there. It's not only my words. A lot of people are saying that.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. So you can try CrewAI, and you can run that on local models if you want to experiment with it. Or you can run that with GPT-4 as well and get amazing results. Not gonna lie, GPT-4 is gonna give you the best results in class. And some of the times, like even though it might cost a little longer, it's gonna save you so much time that the math actually works a lot in your favor. So I would say keep that in mind as you're experimenting with these models. And then if you have like the engineering knowledge and capability, you can talk about like specific fine tunes and all that. And we might be releasing something soon around that. I won't spoil it too much, but it might make it way easier to try agents at a lower cost in the future.
Wow. So this is really good advice. If you're starting out today and you just feel a little bit lost, maybe you missed like everyone's talking about GPT-4 and everyone's talking about these models and there's just too much complexity. I think the first step is like maybe even if you're a young kid and you're trying to figure out how to do something, go talk to businesses, go ask them what their problems are. There's a lot of businesses and people who survived the pandemic that are still barely getting by. They haven't even adopted basic technology. Like they're asking you for how to set up their Wi-Fi password. But there's probably a lot of other parts of business they can optimize. So this could be a really good opportunity for you if you're maybe tech savvy enough and have a little bit of, curiosity to start saying, okay, well, you have a lot of customers coming in. How can we use some of these models to maybe understand who they are? If they come in, can we read their face maybe and understand at the restaurant, have an order ready before they even get there? Because the last 10 times they've always placed an order for this specific espresso and start maybe doing these types of thinking a little bit out of the box and saying, maybe packaging that up into an offering and saying, hey, I can do this for you and it's bringing in revenue. And, before the person comes in, we send them a text and saying, hey, we have your latte ready. Do you want to just text back yes to confirm and we'll have it ready at 9:05 like you usually come in before your workout or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that many customers would be impressed because they'll be like, wow, they have my card on file. It's already ready. I'm already on the way. And I'm just replying back yes. And how cool. I don't have to wait in line. I just go pick it up. That's just one use case. And if you're thinking like a business person and if you want to just get on this is a great time. You're not really missing the boat. We're at the
very
early stages.
Very, very, very early.
Yeah.
Like what I would say to people is like spend time thinking about what use cases this unlocks.
Yes.
There's so many cases that this unlocks that were just not possible before. It's like things that people are not even thinking about, right? Like now you have vision models.
Right.
You can extract data from images. What that unlocks for your business. I know it's kind of like it requires you to flex some of that brainstorm muscle, but I would say you should do it. There was like what I have done, like while I was working at Clearbit, was whenever a new OpenAI like announce would come in, we would have a meeting right afterwards on the same day to just talk about what this changes for us. And you're gonna learn there's like low-hanging fruits, like automate here, automate there, but there's like brand new use cases that no one's doing because they're just not feasible before.
That's cool. So What is your goal with CrewAI? Are you trying to have someone acquire it, sell it? And if it gets sold, is it still going to be open source? You know, if I invest a bunch of energy and resource into it, like what's going to happen? You know, if it gets purchased and acquired, then I can't use it for free anymore, or like, you know, what's...
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, honestly. So CrewAI is an open source library, and I intend to keep it that way. So CrewAI is open source, people can use it. That said, I very much intend to make this enterprise offering. So right now, CrewAI has become a company. CrewAI is incorporated in the US, we're a C Corp, and this is becoming a business that is still going to offer the open source offering, and we're going to keep working on that just because, honestly, I love open source. I have been doing open source for decades, and it has been career changing for my life. It's a way to give back to the community, and I also get a lot of energy from that. So we're going to keep doing the open source with the CrewAI for sure, but we know that in order for businesses to kind of like adopt this tech, they need to go the extra mile. They need things that the open source community don't necessarily care about, but that we can build for them.
Wow.
So there's going to be an effort on creating that for the businesses to start using CrewAI and to actually deploying AI agents in production on their businesses.
So now that the cat is sort of out of the bag, that this has been an approach, I think AutoGen was one of the first things that I saw that come to my radar based off a research paper. To me, to implement it seemed really extremely complex. Tell me about why your offering's different, and then are there other competitors in the field that you've also saw, and kind of why you chose to go in your specific architecture route as opposed to what you've already seen? Kind of your little bit of background on that. And like
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, AutoGen is probably the biggest name in the industry, right? Everyone knows about it, and they are bloated. I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of a fact. They're coming out, but it's not bad coding. You need to understand the concept, right? They're coming out of an academic research. A lot of the people that are working on this are like researchers and academic people that don't necessarily have the eye for engineering production software running in startups and companies nowadays. So that then becomes like transparent on the code and how you set it up and the choices that they are making around like how to go about it. So they have a more complex DSL. You have to write a bunch of boilerplate code before you actually to do something. So I think our approach came from a different angle that is like how we can simplify things to the point that almost seems a little magical, right?
Wow.
I know that not a lot of engineers like to have too much magic going on.
Yeah.
But I think given like my background of the Ruby community, the Rails community,
Yes.
I try to bring a lot of that. Like, hey, how we can make this so simple to read that almost sounds like English.
Wow.
So you don't need to think about, oh, now I want to create a manager proxy user. Like, what does that mean? Like, no, I want to create an agent. I want to give it a role. I want to give it a go, and I want to give a backstory. You read it as English, and you understand what is going on.
Wow.
And I think that's one reason that resonated a lot with engineers and kind of brought people in to try it out, to the point that a lot of people in our community are kind of like low-code people. They're leveraging ChatGPT. We also have a custom GPT that's kind of trained on CrewAI documentation and code. In matter of fact, out of the 3 million GPTs out there, we are number 7 in programming.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of people are kind of using that in order to create this like softwares and these automations using CrewAI. So I think that's a huge like differentiator right now. The fact that we made things simple. We made multi-agent systems simple, and people really resonate that. We also have a few features that they don't have, and the other way around is also true, right? So we have a bunch of guidelines to make sure that you get more reliable results. That has been a problem with agents in general. So we have like caching layers, we have mechanisms that kind of push your agent back into line to perform the action if they start to stray too much away. So there's all like these guidelines in the code level that make sure that these agents can produce more reliable outcome instead of just hallucinate their way away and then not giving you anything useful back. So I think that kind of like taps into a little bit on how we are seeing like the other frameworks out there and how we are going about it.
Wow. Wow, that's so cool. That's That's amazing. And I feel like electricity was just invented, and we're trying to figure out how to build things to use with the electricity because it's going to take over the world.
Yeah, right.
And like here we are, doing our things and stuff. Where do you see AI going, and where do you see how are you kind of planning for how your software is going to kind of skate to where the puck is going per se?
You mean long term, medium term?
Let's just shoot for like a 2 year, like even just 1 year, right? Like 1 year ago, we barely got OpenAI GPT-4, and that blew things out of the water. And every quarter of a release or something was just mind bending. It feels like
Yeah.
in terms of years. So yeah, 1 year, which would be like 7 years in dog years, like, but AI years is 1 year, 7 years.
Yeah. So the way that I'm thinking about it for for CrewAI specifically, and the way that I would advise other people to think about their businesses as well, is especially if you're in the AI market, things are changing so fast. There's almost value to not being locked into something. It's like people that are going in first. Like usually in the past, like people that are going in first, they have like more benefits. With AI, it's almost like the opposite in some cases, not all cases, but some cases, because you go in first, you're gonna have to deal with like everything that goes wrong and everything that changes. So the market's moving super fast. It's gonna generate a lot of money, because we're talking about things that can basically tap into many industries. Like if AI agents alone, if you think about it like automations are everywhere. So there's a bunch of money to be made. And with the market moving so fast, companies need to move fast. I think if more than anything, there's value on being nimble. There's value in keeping things small and moving fast until you get to something that gets real traction. And then you go full throttle. So that would be my advice out there. Like, make sure they're experimenting with things, but you need to be tuned in. You need to be like experimenting when things come out. You need to be understanding how the market is shifting. So right now, for me, what that means is like, I want to keep moving fast. And I want to make sure that I keep nimble enough to the point that I don't get distracted with the noise, because you can get like sucked into like Twitter feed, seeing everything about AI pretty easily. But as like relevant stuff find its way to me, I want to make sure that I spend my time with it.
Tell me a little bit about CrewAI. You said it was just formed to a C Corp. And how many employees are there? Or is it still top secret? Like stealth startup?
I can. It's not a stealth startup, but I can share some.
Open source, but we're closed, if you know what I mean. Wink.
We have a lot of people in the community that is helping on the open source front, and that is great. I really appreciate everyone doing that. And as I said, we're gonna keep doing that anyway. That's very much a focus of ours. And we have mainly contractors that are helping us. So people that I have worked with in the past, people that I trust, people that I know that are great engineers, and they're helping out. And we're gonna probably start to do like some of like key hires soon to figure out like help us move this into the next step.
Cool. Awesome. What type of people are you looking for? Are you looking for them externally, or any specific people you want to tell them to reach out to you and you find would be interesting?
I'm trying to favor people that I have worked with, just because the fact that in this stage, what matters the most is the ability to go from 0 to 1. Right? So like, it's not about only making like the best hire or like finding the best engineer. Is the best engineer for the best, like your actual stage as a company. So it's a Venn diagram where like you can have all the best engineers here, but a portion of them are going to be great for the stage that you are at. And the stage that we are at is very much the 0 to 1 stage, where there is very low guidance around like what needs to be done. And it's very much exploration, figuring out, stretching those muscles and all that. So I'm looking specific people that have that founder mentality, that are within that like that framing of things. So if you turn out to be one of them, hit me up. Yes, we're gonna be officially hiring soon.
Cool. That's really cool. That's a big deal. Have you launched other companies before? Is this your first venture or?
So I have done companies before. I have been CTO at a company back in 2014.
Mm,
Was called Palpiteros. Was a
mm.
soccer social network.
Yo,
And it was,
football.
yeah, was right around the World Cup in Brazil.
Wow.
And we were based in Brazil back then. Like that was kind of crazy because we got our fair share of like incidents and infrastructure problems, giving like everyone was kind of like talking about it and using it. And that was very interesting. And then I also did a self-funded company that I eventually shut down because was hard. I think was like pandemic kind of like throw things into whack a little bit,
Hmm.
given that we were basically doing like a hardware company. So a lot of it was components and importation. And with like COVID, things kind of got shut down. Components got super expensive. So we put a break on that to figure out what to do with it later. So that has been a lot of fun. And also like Clearbit. I joined Clearbit back. It was like a smaller company. We're
Hmm.
around like 60 employees or something and grow up to be like a big company. I think at some point we got over 200 people, and we just got acquired by HubSpot a couple months ago. So
Wow.
that was another cool startup trajectory.
That's cool. So you're here in San Francisco and where's home base and does it matter even for you in your experience?
I gotta say, I'm born and raised in Brazil, but I have been all over the place. I used to do a lot of conference speaking back in the day, so I would travel to Italy, spend some time in there, and then Israel, spend some time in there, and then France, spend some time in there, and US as well. So I have been like back and forth. Right now, I'm in SF one every 4 weeks or so just because I create so much opportunity on that 1 or 2 weeks in SF. There's a lot of serendipity that happens in the city that it's worth to be around. But I still have family in Brazil and all that. At some point soon, probably I'm gonna end up moving to SF. I think there's not gonna be too much way around it. But yeah, has been a lot of fun, and I'm excited about that too.
We've talked a lot about a lot of stuff, and this is a very encouraging thing in terms of what you've developed, what you put out there for the world, how people are receiving it, and now the torch is yours for you to take with you and do something really amazing with it. So, any last words of advice for a
Mm,
builder, an entrepreneur, someone who's getting into the space and kind of, what's
yeah.
their next step? And
For people that are entering this space, what I would tell you is recognize that inertia is hard.
mm,
So going from 0 to 1 is way harder than going 1 to 10. So right now, if you're not using I know that you're feeling the dread of like, oh, if I want to use it, now I need to kind of like set up my computer. I need to read this web blog post. I have these tabs opens that I never get to.
mhm.
And that's inertia. Like that's physics doing its thing. It's hard to go from stationary to motion. What I would say is if you push through, and it doesn't need to be that far, if you get from 0 to 1, you read the article, you set up the computer, you buy GPT, whatever that 0 to 1 motion is to you, then 1 to 10, it's way simpler and way faster.
Mm.
So use that as kind of like a forcing function to make sure that you get things started. Because right now, the best thing that you could do for yourself is starting playing with AI.
Mm.
And if you're doing that, you might as well play with CrewAI. So check it out.
That's awesome. Joao. Wow. Joao, wow.
Do all out. You got it.
It's amazing. It's a real pleasure to be here with you.
Uh,
And this is one of many more times that we'll probably get to hang out and
I hope so.
get to introduce this to the world. I think it's a real blessing and it's got a lot packed into it. So I appreciate your time here. And I know you got to get back to coding and shipping features and stuff. So I'm not going to slow you down on that effort. So
No worries. I love it. It was really good. Thank you for having me. And yeah, let's do it again.
yeah, for sure. Cool. Good to see you.
Great seeing you.